The following recording is a teacher-to-teacher session that was presented by educators like you at Society for Science's High School Research Teachers Conference. This annual all-expenses-paid conference brings together teachers to share best practices on leading students in STEM research and competitions. The Society is a nonprofit membership organization dedicated to expanding scientific literacy, effective STEM education, and scientific research. If you'd like to reach out to any of the presenters, please contact the Society at teachers@societyforscience.org.
Okay, welcome to the Research at Home Organisms and Ecosystems session at our High School Research Teachers Conference. I'm Caitlin Sullivan, Director of Outreach and Equity Programs at the Society. If you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to start putting them in the chat if you have comments or other resources you'd like to share, and then the presenters will get to those questions at the end. We will rearrange the questions. Don't be afraid to ask one. We'll be watching to see if one comes in, maybe it's already been answered, then we'll skip over that one and look to a new one. And if you are unsure about that, watch your chat and we'll be posting to you here the next question, just so you know. So I'm going to hand it over to our presenters.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad that you've tuned in to Jennifer and I. We're going to talk about the research at home, organisms and ecosystems. And I just want to put a disclaimer that many of you are experts, and there will be an opportunity for you to add additional information to some common resources for this topic. And know that Jennifer and I are experts in our own field. However, we are experts within the context of what we present at within our own schools. So again, I just want to acknowledge the fact that many of you are experts within research, and we will ask that you chime in.
Yeah, hello, I'm Jennifer Grivens. It's been real fun working with Cinda, putting together this presentation and talking about our programming and our ideas for having the kids do research from home this year. And I teach in Michigan. I'm in Eaton Rapids, so I'm down here, and I'm just 20 miles south of the capital, but I'm considered rural, and I'm an agri-science teacher. Do you want to do the quote?
Oh, so this is one of my absolute favorite quotes out there. So I don't know if others have seen it, but this is one that I did put on my webpage. But earth and sky, woods and fields, lakes and rivers, the mountain and the sea are excellent schoolmasters and teach us more than we can ever learn from books.
When Cinda and I were talking about what do we do for outdoors and at home at research, and we wanted to make sure that we gave you a glimpse of outdoors at our schools. And at my school, I said I'm in Eaton Rapids High School, and with my school, I've been teaching outdoors for the whole time. 22 years. I started at freshman 5 at Science Center, and I did river testing there. And now here in Eaton Rapids, year 22, we've done river testing every year, except for last year was our first year not doing river testing. I did do a dip and get some data though. So usually all my classes, I have 100 kids down there every year, plus the Montessori classes come down and visit us. We do field and soil analysis. Once again, I'm agri-science, so I do FFA. So we do the career development events with FFA. And I do that field and soil analysis in context of that, amending soil, looking at our watershed, impact on our watershed. Horticulture and food gardens, we have those here at school. I'm at school today, good bandwidth, and we have our hoop house, I have a greenhouse. We work with the city garden, community gardens. Raising chickens and rabbits, you might be able to hear my chicks. I still have 25 in my room. They're going home with kids to raise for the broiler project, and they're going to take data, and it's going to be a couple of kids science fair projects this year. I host an outdoor day and science night for the K-8 kids, and our kids, my high school kids, teach them about the projects they've done, the science projects they've done, the career development events, and what we do in our classes. And then within the 72 in a class period, trimesters, we can walk back to the woods along the river, and we do forest and field studies within the woods there. And Wilson and I had pictures we wanted to share with you. So This over here, this is the river we can walk to during our class hour, and that's in a wooded area. This is water quality testing day, the day we get back and we share all our data, and just tactily doing that on the board. And then I'm putting in a spreadsheet online. We do it on spreadsheets too. And the critters we find, my chicks that are chirping back there look just like this right now. They're little. My FFA kids at the state science fair. And then outdoor day, having the kids in our greenhouses. We grew sunflowers. Outdoor day down at the river doing water testing. So all these things I think about, and I have my kids think about when they, what are you going to do for a science fair? What are you going to do for research? What do you want to know more about? All these things we do in class, what do you want to know more about?
So I'm from Albion, Pennsylvania, is where I teach, Northwestern Senior High School. Over the last 20 years, I've been taking students outside and integrating environmental education into the program. And from that, we've been spinning off and doing independent research projects. So we'll talk a little bit later about how we go about the process of going from regular activities that we do, like stream testing, some ag projects, and some phenology trail work. We are deeply ingrained in my school district of developing a passion for the environment and trying to inspire students to learn more about research that's developing within their community, and then comparing that and expanding upon the conditions within their natural world around the school grounds and in their own backyards. This issue of creating equity and creating familiarity of nature has become forefront in one of the latest equity issues. So I think it's vitally important to get students outside and create that comfort zone that they're able to expand upon that and then create research. So Jennifer, if you'll advance a slide for me. So a couple of things that we have at my school is forestry plots. So we've been doing a 6-year tracking of growth within a forest stand, and we have the trees tagged. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see what we call an open top chamber. And I've been working with some scientists who work on Arctic research, and this was given to me for my students to use. So it came right out of the Arctic area, and it's something that's set up in the nature area plot, and we do phenology experiments on that. I also teach chemistry, so we integrate extraction of different plant pigments using the plant pigment extraction, and then teaming up with my art teacher to paint actual pictures using the pigment. So that's kind of an interesting spin on that. We do a lot of invertebrate work, stream work, and then in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a student painting a picture. So we actually collect soil samples and paint, again, integrating art into that. And all of those things are purposely done to try to inspire students to dig a little deeper.
So when we talked about what we do at school and how we translate that to a project that the kids can do at home, research at home and thinking outside for the projects. And then, our slides came with quotes. We wanted to put some nice quotes in here, and with Emerson and nature. And just once again, that STEAM that Cinda was just talking about, bringing and integrating that together in that the kids can bring their passions to their projects. And I find that a lot more when the kids raise animals or are outside or raising a garden, raising plants. What is the next step that you can bring and bring your passion into this?
So the activity that I do every year is, and I had to modify that a little bit this year because many of us are in the remote model, but this activity came straight from a workshop that I did with Joe Levine and Barbara Benton. That was an inquiry in the rainforest. So teachers did a workshop there, and this was one of the activities that we took students outside. And it made me realize the importance of both adventure and discovery. And so what I'd like to do is kind of emulate that across the virtual community. So because many of you cannot take students outside to do the like personal observations, we have a couple of pictures to share with you. And I'm going to ask you to choose a sticky note, to take a sticky note and put a research question. And so this is supposed to be kind of like a question, a prompt to ask a question based upon a figure or from a photograph. So you'll be asking a question by looking at the photograph, and there's many slides to choose from. So Jennifer's pulling that up. So there's cattle and then birds, trees, farming, fruit in nature, flowers in nature, insects in nature. And so if you'll just examine those photographs, and you can choose any picture on any slide and then stop in a sticky note.
We were trying to figure out like things that we do in our classrooms, and Cinda takes the kids outside and has them generate the questions, and having kids come up with the 20 questions each.
Yeah, based upon observations.
Oops.
So this project is trying to tap into that natural curiosity from observations. So we're seeing some of those drop in.
Could you show a couple of us how to use a sticky note?
Okay, so you go into this little guy's a sticky note, and then you just click on it, and you can choose which color you want. You know, whatever color you want, and then you just type in it like whatever question you can come up with for the pictures that are here.
Where was the link on the page? Where was the
Yes,
little?
please, yeah.
Yeah, it's over on the right side.
So
So
as
right
you're
here.
looking at any of the pictures, if
Or the
there
left
is,
side. This left.
yeah. So if there's any pictures
Oh,
at all
I got
that
it,
just spark that curiosity.
Okay, got it.
Did you find it?
Thank you.
And again, this is a brainstorming. So any ideas that you have, it's completely open-ended.
Is there an easy way to I don't have an interactive screen. I can't click on anything.
Oh,
Neither can I.
Is
so you
there
don't
some-
have like a mouse? I've had kids
I-
do Jamboards on their phones before, but I don't know.
I have a mouse, the cursor, but it just goes over it. It doesn't give me an interactive to be able to click.
You have to
And in
join
this
Jamboard through the link that's in the chat.
I think they're trying to click on the slides that you're showing in your presentation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
You have to go to
yeah.
the link.
Yeah, I'll put it back down in the chat. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
no, I saw something pop up and then I was listening to you guys and I'll go back and look.
I just re-put it in here.
Okay, I'm pulling it up. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I just want to say with this activity too, you're meeting students wherever they are, again, because it's wide open. And so, later on, you can elaborate on that, and define the different topics in that sharing out. But again, it's wide open. So it's just based upon just natural curiosity, looking at a picture and using that kind of deductive reasoning.
Very close to the NGSS phenomena.
Yeah.
I've never used Jamboard before. Is there a way that you can keep track of the students as so you know who's actually participating or not? Because I see all the little icons, but that's not the names of the students.
I've only used it with workshops right now. I know that a couple of the other science teachers in my department at school are using it for assignments, but I think they're doing the rearrangement and then the kids do their own Jamboard and hand it in to the teacher.
Okay.
I don't know
Yeah,
if it's a different way.
I make mine put their initials in their sticky note.
Oh, okay, good.
So they have to put their initials in their comment on their sticky note.
And Ninfa, I believe that was your name. My apologies if I got that wrong. The other way to do it is when you share, you can give them editing access. And so then you don't see the anonymous, you see their names. It's just a different way of sharing it with them.
Okay.
Another alternative would be to use just the Google Slides and have them log in. So if they log in with Google, you could do a similar thing using just Google Slides.
We are a team school. We're not even allowed to use anything Google while we're synchronous. It's like bad things to happen to you. I'm like, you have to use Microsoft. I'm like, okay, there's so much other stuff we can do, but and they're monitoring that we're not using anything Google.
Right.
Sounds terrible.
You tell me, because our school was classroom and they like dumped us into team intuitive at all. It's not as easy as Google Classroom. But
yeah. The limiting of online.
Looks like some really good questions coming up.
So Cinda, would you like to start going, what do you do next with this now?
So from here, I would go out and have students look over the different questions that are there and then add additional comments. So ideally you want to have several comments. So the slide that's up, we have several different questions coming up on the bird feeder slide. So, and it's just that sharing out of perspectives, because everybody that's coming to the table, to the slide to post in a question is coming with a different perspective. And so students, this is a great way of getting that discussion going. And then they can choose questions to expand upon using some additional resources. So sometimes keywords come up for the Science News magazine. They can search in there. I know that there were previous sessions that talked about how to springboard off of that. But it's just that open point talking. And you can also even share out one of those journals where students can expand upon an idea. But again, it's that non-threatening, posting a question and getting students involved in just looking at things from inquiry. So for having that fresh eye perspective of looking at a picture and analyzing it and then coming up with an idea.
We were trying to put together, some pictures that when kids walk out their door through their neighborhood, what could be a starting point for a research that they can do at home? And these are some excellent questions, and you can really see how, like Cindy was saying, the springboarding happening, and then some ideas I didn't think about are popping up here. So as a student too, that same thing. And these are all photos Cinda takes back in their nature trail.
Yeah, if you get a chance to do this outdoors where students are looking at things where you're doing kind of a guided tour and just kind of investigating where you really may not know the answers to everything that you're seeing, and you have to be open to allowing students to kind of propose or to question, and you're letting that happen. One thing about research topics is you do not have to be the expert in the field to be able to propose questions, and then students can dig a little deeper. And also by allowing them to come up with their own concepts, they develop ownership, which is really important to kind of allow that choice within that defining the research question. So again, playing upon that natural curiosity. Really excellent questions there. I find that the best questions come from students who have never seen anything, and it's all that sense of discovery and enthusiasm that they get from everything that's kind of new. But it does create that a platform of, it's a safe platform for them to propose a question. And so you get them thinking at a different level.
And I like to, when you talked about taking the kids out with a journal and just pausing in places and having the kids write, 2 or 5 questions about the place in which you're at. And we're talking about in our school, we're all online right now, and it's a great activity to have the kids, okay, for 20 minutes asynchronous, you're going to take paper and go outside and journal about a tree. So what are 5 questions while you're looking at that tree that you can generate?
So when we talk about getting kids starting to design projects, that 20 question is just kind of a platform that you can springboard off of. So if you create a common experience or some kind of firsthand investigation, preferably through like a guided tour where you're taking them out and letting them see that natural environment, and then springboarding off of that. So that quiet outdoor journaling, or getting them to start to think a little bit deeper based upon observation.
So when we went back to what we've done in classes before, if you have kids multiple years, or you know that your kids came in and they had chemistry, or they had the first research class, thinking about those group experiences, and then what are some novel situations that they want to explore more in depth. So we just had a group experience here, and then of this group experience, what is something that interests the personal student the most in using that for their own personal design?
So you can get kids expanding upon, if you do a group lab, or you talk about the like an exercise that you're doing together as a class. So you can start with group projects and then expand into kind of spin-offs from that. So you can teach how to use certain kind of equipment, or talk about specific organisms, and then allow them to expand upon that. And then another way is, once they start getting those questions, they can expand into using the resources that are available through the science literature. So I know someone presented yesterday talking about using science news. So once you get a question, you can put a search through the database and then see how others do it. So it starts with observation, and then how do others see that, and how are others studying that, the similar questions to the field.
So that connecting the resources, I was so excited because I found this in my classroom this morning. And Cinda was talking about doing the extraction for the pigments in the art that they do. And then Science News has growing flavors, and how you extract the flavors from different foods and what those mean, and how they go into the bigger aspect of food choices for people. And so if somebody really liked the extraction, then this would be another idea for them to move forward with. So taking them on Science News, there's just so many different articles about that the kids can connect their thoughts to the bigger problems.
So there are several ideas that students can look at for developing those ideas further. So once they get an organism, they can look at things like distribution data within the ecosystem. I'll talk a little bit more about MHJ in another slide. comparing seeds that are available, looking at pollinator counts, and other counts of organisms within the environment. So if you can set up an instance where students are looking at 2 different conditions based upon either time, so seasonally, or with different areas and different ecosystems, then they've got a nice setup to be able to do a comparison analysis.
And with identification, so the kids, what can kids do in their homes? What can the kids do when they're on their own? Just getting a net and getting those macros out of a pond versus a lake versus a river, and doing a comparison of the macros that they find. Insects such as milkweed beetles. So the milkweed beetles were really high this year, and asking that question and then doing looking for the evidence of milkweed beetles and identifying that they're there. Pollinator ID and frequency. So how many pollinators are you seeing in a garden or a flower patch or a weed patch, and going out and doing counts and taking data just based on that.
So I'll talk a little bit about MHJ. If you're not familiar with MHJ, but you have used microscope software where you're able to measure, MHJ has a whole, it's free, you can download it. It's an NIH software that's available to anyone. And I was first introduced to MHJ through the scientific research community. So different scientists do actually use MHJ to take, once you have any picture, whether it's an outdoor picture or a picture from the microscopes. And I think Jennifer's going to talk a little bit about the add-ons with cell phones that you can take those pictures of microscope. But you can look at different color pigments that are within a photograph, and you can look at insect damage within leaves. So you can actually adjust the image that you can measure. You can look at the color spectrum. You can also look at the analysis of leaf damage. So MHJ is one of those kind of hidden tools that's absolutely free, accessible, fairly user-friendly to use. And I highly recommend, if you have not ventured out there, to give it a try. There are many, many YouTube videos that show you how to use the software. And I've posted 2, but again, there's many.
Right. Another thing, when bringing and connecting your resources to what the kids find interesting to do at their homes, if they see monarch butterflies and they're more interested in, like, why are they all gone now? You have existing data sets, and that's relevant research. And if the kids are connecting it back to what they're seeing at their home and thinking about those. So you have animal cams throughout the country. You can watch eagles be born and be raised. You have cams out in the mountains. You have cougar cams all over the place. Migration data, once again, the butterflies, the hummingbirds, the birds, and the problems associated with migration. We're having more cities turn their lights off at night, which is pretty cool. Weather observations are excellent to do, especially when we're talking about climate and the impact of climate. So I know NOAA and Weather Underground both have, you can go back in time, and then for getting old weather, and the kids could just look up the weather and do a weather comparison to now, to 10 years ago, to 20 years ago, and connect what they're seeing outdoors. Also solar panel data, like I have solar panels on my roof of my high school. The kids can access that data. They can access the data in town. There's national solar panels and windmills, wind turbines, sorry. That data is usually highly accessible. And if the kids would like to do an analysis of how much we have sunlight and weather and temperature on my solar panels, so most solar panels have that too. And I shared the link to our presentation in chat right now, so you should be able to view it. So if you wanted to do those links to MJ that Cinda put in there, that should be available. Okay, and then also with farm and animal care, like I said, I've got my chicks back here. I'm sending chicks home with the kids, keeping feed data, compare fields of one field in one area and one field in another area, and do the soil analysis on there, tracking behavior of animals, changing things up, teaching your old dog a new trick, but keeping data and doing that multiple times, and growing and measuring crops, animal growth data. Like the chicks we weigh once a week, and you can do that with any animal that's growing. Chart the crop and animal amendments. So if your chicks aren't thriving, you amend their feed, but you take detailed analysis of that and then keep and track that data as they grow. So one of my kids at one state science fair took first and gold. She actually raised her rabbits, and she had 2 rabbits and put one rabbit on an organic food and the other rabbit on the regular show feed. And these were meat rabbits. So I analyzed the food, analyzed the poop, and then once the rabbits got to the 20 weeks, we slaughtered the rabbits, and she analyzed the meat and the rabbits and the bone density. And it was a really neat and interesting lab that she did.
The incredible thing about tapping into the natural world is that there is an abundance of organisms that you can look at, but there's also those abiotic factors that exist in the ecosystem. So looking at differences in light, differences in moisture content and temperature. There are weather stations all across the US. In one of the previous cell phone applications that was shared out yesterday, there are additional resources through apps for the cell phone. So you can measure stars, cellular information. You can look at those weather stations and also the bird migration information that's available online. And we're hoping that through this incredible resource of the research symposium that we're able to add to a resource that we'll all be able to get to over the course of the next year. So one thing that I do want to remind everyone that if you are capturing organisms from the field, make sure that you're following state and local restrictions that might apply. So for example, I'm in Pennsylvania, and the Pennsylvania Fish Commission tells us that we cannot capture crayfish. So there are restrictions there, and that you need a fishing license to capture macroinvertebrates. So just be aware of those local restrictions that might exist as you're getting native organisms.
And somebody asked a question about using vertebrates, and I know that the international and national science competitions have very strict rules. And for national FFA, since we are an agricultural organization, there are a different set of, you have to have sign-offs from the advisor and the supervisor and the parent and the child that these animals are being raised humanely. And like my kid that processed the rabbits, they were processed at a USDA. We actually have one like 20 miles that way that does rabbits and ducks and quails and chickens, and the USDA facility that processes the animals humanely too. So, I mean, that was an exception. She was her senior year. Most times we're raising and caring for the animals too.
Yeah, so just a reminder to know the rules of whichever competition your students are entering. Up, so our brainstorm time.
I put this in the chat. Okay, so for Mentimeter, it comes up, you can put as many words or statements in that Mentimeter as you would like. So it comes up and it says words there, but you can put words or statements. And go over to this guy. Okay. So brainstorm time. Ideas for equipment that kids can use at home for outdoor science investigations. Okay, this can be equipment that they have at their houses that you think that they could get a hold of. It can be equipment that you send home. Like I have all my 9th graders right now growing seedlings in little egg packets. I got these off of Amazon. I was totally enthralled by them. They're egg for selling eggs at farmers markets, and they're growing their little seedlings in there. You can see the roots and everything on them. And so every single kid has the exact same growing situation. I sent home soil with them, right? Or it can be, are you going to lend them your good stuff? Are you going to lend them your microscope and your, what kind of things would you feel comfortable lending them from school too?
So we have a couple of ideas coming in for equipment that's accessible at home.
Once again, that Mentimeter is in the chat.
Oh, I love the pitfall trap solo cups. And that's one of the things that I want to express, that these are often low budget kind of experiments, but they're extremely powerful because you can generate a nice data set and still do all the statistical analysis. And I just want to say, with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, a lot of times students can anchor to agriculture sources with food, growing crops, and also climate change. So there's a lot of very informative upper level research that's being done at universities that students will be able to connect to. So the importance and the purpose is very, very student driven and current event driven.
In other sections, like breakout sessions I've been attending this weekend too, many of us have a very much a variety of students, so if you have some kids that are entry level, your first year freshmen coming in, and then you have the upper level students, doing these introduction activities with them, and you might have some kids that are the ones that are going to want to do International Science Fair, and starting them here with a field study, and then thinking about being able to access the data banks and working with somebody at a university. This year will probably be Zoom. Michigan State University does not allow anybody on campus right now unless you have permission. So, but I have people there like growing potatoes up at MSU, and the kids could connect with them over Zoom too. It's a different year. So thinking about how you get your kids doing research and science in the year that we have right now.
And these areas of research are often more approachable than, say, biochemistry for students. So you can kind of meet students where they are and then expand upon their interest and their level of science literacy at the time. So it's a nice gateway into educational research for them.
Okay, I'm gonna have to switch back, I think.
Yeah, it's a nice word cloud coming along.
Let me see. So these are some great ideas to think about, and I think I'll put the results. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, sorry, I'll put the results up there too.
And I would encourage you, if you have not looked at, if you did not get a chance to see the cell phone presentation that was done yesterday for the apps, it's an excellent one. It talked about ArcGIS and that. So I would encourage you to look at that, because that kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about in terms of tools that are available to students through online resources.
Okay.
Hey guys, this is Caitlin. Just to let you know, we have about 5 minutes left.
So Jennifer, do we want to just open up to questions at this point?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, great. We have a question from Amanda. Amanda Smith, would you ask your question?
Hi. We've been chatting a little in the chat of some things to do kind of in a city setting was going to be my question. And I think we're seeing some good ideas, especially for like kind of animals and insects. I think my question is more getting the kids outside in like a sitting setting for them to do those sort of observations and getting them engaged with nature. Do you have any ideas on how to sort of adapt that end of it for city students?
So I think it's really getting out there and looking for those little pockets of opportunity. So if you can even put something on, I know some schools have rooftop gardens, so that's an opportunity and then whatever schoolyard is there in terms of like accessible parks and that. Certainly this year is kind of the exception to getting out and being able to take students out to those areas as a group because field trips may be set down. But students can find those pockets, and once they start looking, it's amazing what they can find. So I would say just get out there and take a look around what's actually there.
Yeah, encouraging them to go to the city parks and the zoos. I taught at a charter school in downtown Lansing, and I got the Field Trip of the Year award because I was always dragging them out, walking over to the river trail. We walked to the zoo one day. So it's a really great opportunity to get the kids thinking about, like, you could do a map activity and getting them finding those parks and where they could go and find the local parks. Vincent and I both do the field ecology where I take a hula hoop. You're supposed to have a square meter, throw it on the ground, and how many different types of plants do you see there? And which ones can you identify?
What about, just a quick follow-up, sorry. I'm trying to think towards like water, like we're up on a plateau, like there's no water, river. I'm trying to think of a way to do maybe like sewers, like rainwater, stormwater maybe.
Yeah, and even like rain gauge material where you're collecting rainwater and looking at the different components of that. You can look at pervious, impervious, different areas around. Runoff, just be careful that the students are taking those safety precautions, whatever they're doing outside. So kind of think ahead to see what kind of issues might occur in terms of health with what's there. So, but runoff is an excellent, and even just soil samples you can find with it around the city.
And you could take also, I've done studies with runoff from the roofs in collecting that water and just doing a pH comparison from the different roofs. And once again, you gotta be careful around any kind of pollutants that might be there too.
All right, and we have time for one more question. I know that Keisha had a question about the Amazon Teachers Workshop. Janet, so if you could share that in Edmodo so that folks can find that. But I wanted to get to Carrie's question. Carrie Metter, do you want to ask yours real quick?
Sure. Yeah, so I just had a general question about, and this kind of goes along with just using big data, and there was someone who kind of commented in the chat, but kind of thinking about your webcams and other online resources that students are using, incorporating that into giving an example of a testable question that students have done using those things. It's one thing to go and be like, look at this and just write down observations, but how have you all had experience with converting that into testable questions and actual science projects?
I had one of my, actually it was a pair of students that worked on a project together about the ages of deer in different habitats. So they had 5 different habitats. They used their own trail cam, and they set up the trail cams like by a forest, by a field, and a couple other places. And then they analyzed the ages of the deer that frequented in front of the camera. And it was a freshman level project.
And I think just looking at weather station data, regardless of where you are, and then looking at coming up from questions for that. So again, seasonal changes or changes from area to area. So I think a lot of those resources are available online. We can continue to add to that list. But again, it's that guiding, if they haven't done it, coming up with questions and kind of pulling together and choosing research projects out from that.
All right, great. Thanks so much, everyone. This concludes our session. Cinda and Jennifer will likely be available in the chat feature of the conference. So if you want to continue to ask them your questions, please reach out to them there. Thank you, Cinda and Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, have a good day.